Commander Kalen had been drifting for 3 days. The escape pod's life support systems beeped their warnings with increasing desperation as oxygen levels dropped to critical thresholds. Outside the reinforced viewports, stars wheeled in their eternal dance, indifferent to his predicament. His fingers traced the cold metal walls of the cramped capsule, now more coffin than salvation. The main ship, Valiant, had detonated in a burst of plasma fire 3 solar days ago. He'd barely made it to the escape pod before the shockwave had sent him spinning into the void. Where was the rescue team? The Confederation's protocols dictated that distress beacons should trigger immediate response within 72 hours. His beacon had been broadcasting continuously since the incident, its signal strong and clear. Yet the void remained empty, save for his dying pod and the distant stars. Kalen pressed his palm against the emergency communications panel one more time, though he knew it was futile. Static crackled in response. He thought of Lien Voss, their mission commander. They'd been hauling sensitive cargo, something classified that even he, the ship's tactical officer, hadn't been briefed on. The explosion had originated from the cargo hold. Accident? His training told him no. The blast pattern had been too controlled, too precise. But who would sabotage a Confederation vessel? And more troubling, who would leave one of their own to die in the cold void? His thoughts were interrupted by a proximity alarm. The first new sound in days besides his own breathing and the pod's mechanical whispers. Kalen's heart hammered as he forced himself upright in the pilot's seat. The pod's sensors had detected something. Not just something a ship, but the signature was all wrong. This wasn't a sleek Confederation cruiser with its distinctive ion drive profile. The ship approaching him moved with the irregular pulse of fusion drives, technology the Confederation considered inferior and unstable. Through the viewport, a vessel materialized from the starfield. It looked like it had been assembled from the spare parts of a dozen different ship classes. Patches of mismatched hull plating, retrofit engines that glowed with different colors, and what appeared to be jury-rigged sensor arrays sprouting from its flanks like mechanical antennae. A human ship, the Independence Blade, according to the outdated transponder code that flickered across his failing display. Kalen's fingers hovered over the distress beacon controls. Protocol dictated he should identify himself immediately. But protocol hadn't sent anyone to rescue him. Had it? He hesitated, a lifetime of conditioning warring with the reality of his situation. As if sensing his dilemma, the human ship hailed him. Escape pod, this is Captain Marina Holt of the Independence Blade. We're reading your life support systems are critical. Stand by for docking procedures. The voice that crackled through his speakers carried an accent he'd only heard in cultural archives. Something from old Earth, shaped by generations of living on frontier stations beyond Confederation space. These humans had chosen independence over citizenship, freedom over security. They were considered unpredictable at best, dangerous at worst by his superiors. Kalen's oxygen gauge blinked red. The pod's atmospheric processors could sustain him for perhaps another hour. He toggled the communicator. This is Commander Kalen of the Confederation Security Fleet. My ship was destroyed. He swallowed hard, pride battling necessity. I accept your assistance. Copy that, Commander. Prepare for magnetic coupling. And don't worry, we've had plenty of practice picking up strays. A pause, though usually they're not Confederation officers. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth. The Independence Blade maneuvered with precision despite its cobbled-together appearance, extending a flexible docking tube that sealed around his pod's hatch with a hiss of equalizing pressure. As the hatch cycled open, Kalen caught his first glimpse of his rescuers. Captain Marina Holt stood at the airlock's threshold, her presence commanding despite her lack of formal uniform. She wore practical shipboard coveralls, the fabric worn but meticulously maintained. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a utilitarian braid, and her eyes, sharp and appraising, took in Kalen's condition with practiced efficiency. Behind her, 2 crew members waited with emergency medical equipment. "Welcome aboard, Commander," Marina said, extending a hand to help him from the pod. You look like you could use a pressure suit that doesn't smell like fear and recycled air. Kalen stumbled as he crossed the threshold, his legs unsteady from days in zero gravity. One of the crew members, a man with obvious cybernetic enhancements integrated into his arm and neck, steadied him. Easy there. I'm Rowan, chief engineer. Let's get you two. The medical bay before Talia here starts asking difficult questions about why a Confederation officer was left to die in the void. The other crew member, Talia Briggs, according to the security badge on her coveralls, said nothing. Her hand rested near the scanner on her belt, ready to disable him if he proved a threat. Kalen didn't blame her. Trust was currency in the outer systems, and Confederation credit was worthless on ships like these. The medical bay was a testament to human ingenuity. Outdated Confederation equipment had been modified and improved, integrated with technologies Kalen didn't recognize. As biomedical sensors attached to his skin, bringing his vitals up on ancient displays that had been retrofitted with modern processing cores, Marina handed him a bulb of protein-rich broth. The atmospheric adjustment might make you nauseous. Sip slowly. Your oxygen mixture is different from standard Confederation parameters, he observed. We've got 3 different species aboard. The mix is a compromise that keeps everyone breathing comfortably. Marina pulled up a chair. So, Commander Eris, want to tell us why the mighty Confederation left one of their own to die? Kalen had been dreading this question. Truth was, he didn't have an answer that made sense. My ship, the Valiant, was transporting classified cargo. There was an explosion in the holds. By the time I reached an escape pod. How long ago was this? 3 days. Standard protocol dictates rescue within 72 hours. Marina exchanged glances with her chief engineer. And yet here we are, finding you in the outer reaches of the Kepler corridor. That's well outside normal patrol routes. I know. Kalen's voice was hollow. I don't understand why no one came. Talia finally spoke up. Maybe they did, and just didn't want to find you. When Marina shot her a warning look, she shrugged. I'm just saying, you don't end up in an escape pod in the middle of nowhere because of a simple accident. Talia, Marina said firmly, then turned back to Kalen. You're welcome to our hospitality until we can get you to a station where you can contact Confederation authorities. But I should warn you, we don't make regular stops in Confederation territory. Why is that? Rowan chuckled, adjusting the medical sensors. Because they don't like us very much. Independent humans operating beyond their jurisdiction, we're considered unpredictable elements in their perfect galactic order. Unpredictable is certainly one word for it, Kalen muttered, remembering the security briefings about frontier humans. Wild, lawless, dangerous. Yet here they were, saving a Confederation officer when his own organization had abandoned him. As the medical systems completed their scan, Marina stood. Get some rest, Commander. I'll have Rowan set you up with quarters. We're headed for Proxima Station, neutral territory. From there, you could decide your next move. Kalen wanted to protest, to demand immediate return to Confederation space. But exhaustion and the weight of recent events dragged him down. As his rescuers left the medical bay, one thought echoed in his mind. What had been so important about that cargo that the Confederation would sacrifice an entire ship and crew to keep it secret? His answer came sooner than expected. 6 hours later, as Kalen rested in his assigned quarters, the ship's proximity alarms blared throughout the Independence Blade. He stumbled into the corridor, nearly colliding with Talia, who was racing toward the bridge. What's happening? She barely spared him a glance. Confederation patrol ship. And they're hailing us. Kalen's blood ran cold. Not just any patrol ship. He recognized the energy signature as the Retribution, under the command of Lien Voss herself. His former commander, now demanding to know if the Independence Blade had picked up any escape pods in the sector. On the bridge, tension crackled through the air as Marina faced the view screen where Voss's image flickered. The commander's face bore the same cold beauty that had intimidated countless subordinates, her pale eyes like chips of ice. Asterisk Independence Blade, asterisk. This is Commander Voss of the Retribution. We're tracking a missing escape pod from the CSS Valiant. Have you encountered any debris or distress signals in the past 72 hours? Marina's expression remained neutral. Negative, Commander. We haven't seen any Confederation vessels or equipment in this sector. Kalen watched from the shadows of the bridge's entrance. Something in Voss's eyes when she asked about him. A flash of what? Relief? Guilt? He couldn't be sure. Search all recent sensor data, Voss insisted. The pod may have drifted into your path without your crew noticing. The individual aboard possesses sensitive information critical to Confederation security. What kind of information? Marina asked, her tone carefully innocent. That's classified. Voice Jewel. Tightened. I'll need to board your vessel to perform a security sweep. Before Marina could respond, Rowan's console chimed. He looked up, his cybernetic eye whirring as it processed data. Captain, I'm picking up something strange in the Kepler clouds. Ion emissions consistent with a battle group positioning itself. Voss's image shifted slightly, micro-expressions that Kalen had learned to read during their service together. She was prepared for resistance. This wasn't a random patrol encounter. She had been hunting him. Commander Voss, Marina said slowly, this is the Kepler corridor, technically neutral space. Your authority here is limited to voluntary cooperation. Under Section 19 of the Galactic Security Protocols, potential information breaches constitute an exception to standard jurisdiction boundaries. Stand down and prepare for boarding. Kalen stepped into view. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees as Voss recognized him. Kalen. His name on her lips carried no warmth. I'm relieved to see you survived. Are you? He asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Because you left me to die. We searched for days. The explosion was catastrophic. We assumed. You assumed wrong. Unless you wanted to assume me dead. He could see her hand tighten on her command station. Why was I an escape pod, Lien? Why was I the only survivor? Return to your ship, Commander. That's an order. He's not on your ship anymore, Marina interrupted. And unless I'm mistaken, dead men don't take orders. The standoff stretched into a tense silence. Finally, Voss spoke again, her words measured. The Independence Blade has 30 minutes to surrender the Confederation officer or face destruction. The battle group you detected will ensure compliance. The screen went dark. Battle group? Rowan voiced what everyone was thinking. How many ships are we talking? 3 destroyer-class vessels, at minimum, Kalen answered automatically. Standard containment formation for classified breaches. Talia's hand dropped to her sidearm. So they'll kill all of us to keep you quiet? What exactly are they trying to keep quiet? Marina demanded, turning to Kalen. What was on your ship? I don't know. The cargo was classified above my clearance. But I accessed some data fragments from the ship's computer before the explosion. Kalen hesitated, then made his choice. If I'm worth dying for, you deserve to know why. In the ship's data core, Kalen interfaced with the Independence Blade S systems, surprisingly sophisticated despite their patched appearance. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he pulled up the data he'd managed to save from the Valiant. Project Lightfall, he read aloud. A joint operation between the Confederation Science Directorate and... God, this is worse than I thought. What? Marina leaned over his shoulder. They're testing a prototype phase weapon. Something that can destabilize fusion reactions at the atomic level. If it works, he looked up, meeting the horrified gazes around him. It could detonate the cores of any ship instantly. No shields, no warnings, no escape. A weapon that could end space travel itself, Rowan muttered. Make the void a death trap. Why would they want such a thing? Marina asked. Control. If the Confederation controls the only safe passage through space, they control everything. Trade, exploration, even communication between systems. Kalen's hands shook as he pulled up more data. Look at these test results. They've already used it on civilian targets. A mining vessel in the Tycho system. A colony ship heading for the rim. Your ship was carrying active test results, Talia concluded. And you were the witness they couldn't afford to have. Before anyone could respond, Rowan's console erupted with warnings. Massive energy signatures. The battle group is powering up weapons systems. 23 minutes. Voss was giving them 7 minutes less than promised. Options. Marina barked, settling into the captain's chair. We could run for the proximal limit. In neutral space proper, even a battle group has restrictions, Rowan suggested. Not fast enough. They'll catch us in open space, Talia countered. Unless. All eyes turned to Kalen. Unless what? Talia's jaw worked before she spoke. You surrender. They get their security breach back. We live to fight another day. The bridge fell silent. Kalen knew the logic was sound. One life versus a crew that had saved him. But the data he'd accessed told another story. No, Marina said firmly. I don't leave people to die. Not when they trusted us with the truth. Captain, Kalen interjected. She's right. But not because I'm going to surrender. He turned to the engineering station. Rowan, you mentioned ion emissions earlier. The Kepler clouds, they're electrically charged, aren't they? Storms form there all the time. The particle interaction creates massive EM interference. The engineer's eyes widened. You're thinking what I think you're thinking. If we can reach the cloud layer before they fire, their targeting systems won't be able to lock on. They'd have to follow us in, where their advantage disappears. It's suicide, Talia protested. Those clouds tear ships apart. Only if you don't know what you're doing, Marina said, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. But we're not a Confederation crew. We improvise. She opened the ship-wide comm. All hands, prepare for emergency thrust. We're running the Kepler gauntlet. The next several minutes blurred into adrenaline-fueled action. The Independence blade suddenly vectored hard to port, engines screaming with overload warnings as it raced toward the roiling clouds. The Retribution and its escorts tried to close the gap, their superior engines bringing them within firing range. Weapons locked, Rowan warned. They're targeting engines. Not if I can help it, Kalen muttered, manning the countermeasure station. His fingers danced across controls once more, deploying sensor ghosts and electromagnetic chaff, techniques the Confederation taught, but hoped no one would use against them. The weapon locks wavered, crucial seconds gained. Reality turned to chaos as they plunged into the Kepler clouds. Colors that existed nowhere else in the universe swirled around the ship's hull. Through the viewports, space itself seemed to twist and bend as charged particles interacted with the ship's shields. The Independence blade bucked and yawed, its jury-rigged stabilizers working overtime. Battle group status? Marina shouted over the din of stressed metal. They've entered the cloud layer, but... Rowan grinned fiercely. Their formations breaking apart. More rigid construction means they're fighting the particle streams instead of flowing with them. Kalen marveled at the crew's coordination. No formal military training, yet they moved with purpose born of experience and trust. Marina navigated by instinct through the impossible currents, while Rowan rerouted power to shields with modifications that would have given Confederation engineers nightmares. Even Talia, despite her earlier objections, worked the sensor station with grim determination. 20 minutes into the cloud bank, their luck wavered. The Retribution, either through Voss's skill or desperate determination, maintained pursuit. Warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson as the larger ship began gaining ground. Particle cannon charging, Talia reported. They're going to fire blind. Kalen's mind raced. In these conditions, a particle stream would spread and diffuse, but the sheer power might still cripple them. Unless, Captain, open a channel to the Retribution. Are you mad? Trust me. When the channel opened, Kalen spoke quickly. Lien, I know you can hear me. I've got complete copies of the Lightfall data. Fire on us, and I'll broadcast everything on open galactic channels. Voss's voice crackled with interference. You're bluffing. Test me. How many civilizations will embargo the Confederation when they learn about Project Lightfall? How long before the Council demands your resignation when the truth comes out? Static-filled silence answered him. Stand down, Lien. You've already lost. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Rowan's sensors showed what they'd hoped for. The Confederation ships breaking off pursuit, turning back toward clear space. As the Independence blade emerged from the far side of the Kepler clouds, the crew released collective breaths they hadn't realized they'd been holding. Stars shone clear and crisp again, the chaos of charged particles behind them. Well, Marina said, sinking back in her chair, that's one way to make new enemies. Kalen turned to face her, something shifting in his expression. I owe you my life. All of you. And I've put you in danger. Nothing we can't handle, Rowan assured him, already running diagnostics on overstressed systems. Talia's voice came softer now. What happens next, Commander? Kalen considered the question. He had data that could topple governments, evidence of crimes that reached the highest levels of the Confederation. But he was one man in a stolen escape pod, saved by a ship of supposed outcasts and misfits. I think, he said slowly, I stop being a commander, and maybe start being someone who actually makes a difference. Marina stood, extending her hand. In that case, welcome to the Independence Blade. But I should warn you, our medical benefits are terrible. The coffee's recycled, and Rowan's jokes will make you long for the cold embrace of space. Hey, the engineer protested. For the first time in days, Kalen laughed. As he shook Marina's hand, he felt the weight of a lifetime of conditioning begin to lift. The Confederation had taught him loyalty to the system. These humans were teaching him loyalty to each other. Now, Marina continued, let's talk about what we're going to do with that data of yours. Because I have a feeling this is just the beginning of a very interesting story. As the Independence Blade set course for the Outer Rim, leaving Confederation space and its secrets behind, Kalen reflected on the strange twists of fate. Abandoned to die, he'd found life. Separated from everything he'd known, he'd discovered something worth fighting for. The void might be cold and empty, but he'd learned that sometimes salvation came in the most unexpected forms, like a patched-together ship crewed by the very people his government had taught him to fear. In the depths of space, the Confederation's hold was absolute, except for those brave or desperate enough to break free. And now, with one rescued officer and the truth he carried, the galaxy might never be the same again. The Independence Blade disappeared into the star lanes, carrying with it the seeds of revelation that would, in time, grow into revolution. Behind them, the Kepler clouds continued their eternal dance of charged particles and impossible colors, indifferent to the human drama that had played out within their depths. But somewhere in the vast archives of galactic history, a new chapter had begun, one that started with a man left to die in space and found salvation in the most human of virtues, the willingness to risk everything for what was right.